A slew of COVID-19 misinformation has been going viral on social media.
Plandemic conspiracy theory now floating about which alleges that coronavirus.
That COVID-19 has created the kind of perfect storm for conspiracy
Professionals are calling on social media companies to do more to stop the disinformation from spreading.
We're now calling an infodemic.
Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're watching The Listening Post, working from home. Here are the coronavirus stories, the media elements that we're looking at this week. The human-to-human transmission of conspiracy theories around COVID-19. Why is it that so many Americans actually believe them? The family behind Fiat automobiles now controls one of Italy's largest newspapers, and La Repubblica has taken a turn to the right. Homeschooling in Peru. Broadcasters are learning new skills. They're teaching. And a public service announcement that urges Yemenis to keep their social distance at a time that Muslims traditionally come together. What makes reporting this pandemic so challenging is that so much is still unknown. Often, the way in which data is collected and interpreted is inherently flawed. Scientists are guiding politicians and journalists, but there is no authoritative scientific consensus. Even the origin of the virus is still being investigated. Throw in all the economic pain caused by the lockdowns, the heavy-handed policies of governments, and the result, in the masses, can be feelings of fear, anxiety, and powerlessness. Perfect conditions for misinformation to thrive and conspiracy theories to grow. The U.S. is ground zero for most of those theories, not just because the president and outlets like Fox News have long trafficked in them. There's a market there for conspiracy theories, one that can turn an obscure filmmaker and a discredited scientist into internet sensations. Our starting point this week is the place conspiracies go viral, the World Wide Web.
Virus and bacteria, end of story.
Wearing the mask literally activates your own virus. You're getting sick from your own reactivated coronavirus expressions.
Don't believe her. Far too many people already do. If they handed out Academy Awards for Best Performance by a discredited scientist in a conspiracy theory video, Judy Mikovits from Plandemic would win, hands down.
It's very clear this family of viruses was manipulated and studied in a laboratory.
Never mind that there's no actual evidence of that. The story that Mikovits weaves, accusing members of so-called global elites like Bill Gates and Dr. Anthony Fauci of conspiring to profit from an eventual vaccine, has been viewed, believed, and reposted by millions. The film is the viral sensation of COVID-19 conspiracy theories.
And they'll kill millions, as they already have with their vaccines.
Again, zero evidence.
At first glance, it looks like a network news broadcast. It's very slickly produced, and she's presented as sort of this brave, truth-telling doctor.
For exposing their deadly secrets, the minions of Big Pharma waged war on Dr. Mikovits, destroying her good name, career, and personal life.
In reality, she's kind of this discredited doctor who has had her research retracted, but it was really embraced by various conspiracy theory groups that have strong networks on Facebook that can boost these videos, like anti-vaccine groups and these QAnon conspiracy theorists, this pro-Trump conspiracy.
They knew that their video was going to trip the terms of service on YouTube, and that YouTube and other platforms were going to take it down for health misinfo. So what they did, they created a website with a downloadable video on it and urged everyday people to re-upload it to their own social media. And this kind of networked amplification as a tactic churned the viralness of the video up quite a bit, and we saw it move across platforms rather quickly.
For decades here in this country, experts, scientists, and educators have been under attack for political and social purposes.
You know, the planet renews itself, and I just am doubtful that man is causing the warming.
And whenever you have that situation, a lack of public faith, that's when conspiracy theories fill that vacuum. In this case, we have a lot of different news outlets that have understood that there is an economic benefit to pushing conspiracy theories. Certainly Fox News has sort of laid the groundwork for that.
Fox is getting some help in that respect, specifically from two online outlets, Epoch Times
Chinese communism is evil,
and One American News, or OAN,
mounting evidence of a globalist conspiracy
which are even more right-wing and pro-Donald Trump than Rupert Murdoch's channel is. On COVID-19, they have outfoxed the competition.
Now, emerging reports suggest further links between China and anti-Trump groups in the U.S.
Fox takes a more measured approach to misinformation and alleged conspiracies. During the day, it sticks closer to the news. Primetime evening broadcasts are where the network's true colors are on display, when opinion mongers like Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson do their thing.
Certain people would like to use this moment to elevate themselves and crush you.
That's where the ratings are and where the money is.
For the past couple of years, Fox News has really sort of promoted these various conspiracy theories about the U.S. government.
The Democratic Party, the media mob, the deep state, they have been plotting their revenge.
That manifests itself in people not believing the death count or thinking that Fauci is this sort of villain out to undermine Trump.
Is this the guy into whom you want to vest all of your trust? Is this the guy you want to chart the future of the country?
So there's really this dialogue between fringe groups on the internet and Fox News, even if Fox News isn't coming out and saying, you know, something as outlandish as people on the internet might be.
It isn't just right-leaning media that does it. I mean, there are people believing conspiracy theories across the political spectrum, but a lot of right-leaning media have engaged in certain forms of coronavirus conspiracy theories, pushing the idea that the virus has had its effects exaggerated.
You have been led to believe that every hospital's overflowing, that dead bodies are in body bags and refrigerated trucks that are being parked off to landfills or whatever.
The internet provides conspiracy theories with the means to spread, largely unchecked.
9/11 was a false flag operation intended to authorize the doctrines and funds needed for a new level of imperial mobilization.
Such theories offer what are known as self-sealing narratives. Tell a believer their theory is unproven, they'll say the real truth is being hidden. USA! Present documented evidence contrary to their beliefs, and they will come back with the authorities cannot be trusted to tell the truth.
Let the healthy go back to work!
The COVID-19 story, which bridges the worlds of politics and medical science, institutions many Americans already view with suspicion, and adds a foreign Chinese angle, has all the basic elements many conspiracy theorists are looking for in an increasingly complex world.
Conspiracy theories arise whenever a complicated issue is replaced by a simplified answer.
This is about gaining control over the human race and limiting population. Limiting population with a virus that was created in a lab.
And so in this case, we have a lot of problems economically, politically, socially. The idea of globalism as being a problem around the world. These are really, really complicated things.
It's not a conspiracy, it's fact.
And a conspiracy theory comes in and just very simply replaces all of that complexity and says there are people who are against you and there are people who are plotting against you.
The mental processes for many conspiracy theorists are not that different than the processes for everyone else. Trying to make sense of a chaotic world. It's just the problem is that they have a worldview in which conspiracies are likely explanations for events and circumstances, in which the mainstream media is often lying or covering things up. And they often turn to fringe outlets of information, getting exposed to ideas that are largely conspiratorial.
But by and large, the way in which people start to encounter health misinformation is because someone in one of their networks has shared it, or you'll be watching a news video on YouTube and then an algorithm has seen that you're interested in what's very contemporary about COVID-19, and it gives you something that's from a popular conspiracy type channel.
Donald Trump is America's conspiracist in chief. He pushed dubious theories about Barack Obama long before Trump became president.
Why doesn't he show the birth certificate?
And he has been preaching about the dangers of the deep state ever since. In that respect, Trump is a leader for these times.
Donald Trump uses conspiracy theories strategically. And what we found when we polled people during the 2016 presidential primaries was that he was attracting a different kind of Republican than were other more mainstream candidates, people who already are disposed to conspiratorial thinking. And he keeps them in his coalition by constantly feeding them conspiracy theories and constantly acting as if he and them are under threat by powerful forces.
It's when the conspiratorially minded come up against the rest of society that the issues arise. The confrontations between the right-to-work crowd and frontline workers. A conflict Judy Mikovits describes accurately in Plandemic, if not intentionally.
It's beyond comprehension how a society can be so fooled that the types of propaganda continue to where they're just driving us to hate each other.
And to disbelieve each other, to the extent that if and when a vaccine is finally available, a lot of people will turn it down.
There's a real risk here. We have a large swath of Americans who will not take this vaccine. You see this not only among the anti-vaccination people, but of course among people who believe things like Obamagate and the New World Order conspiracy and Plandemic. And unfortunately, it's going to hinder the fight against the pandemic, and it's going to cause real damage.
That would be the message to any conspiracy theorist who happens to be tuning in, that your unproven beliefs could cost you your life and cost others theirs. But then you're watching this on the mainstream news media, and we would say that, wouldn't we?
We're discussing other coronavirus-related media stories now with one of our producers, Nick Muirhead. Nick, you've been looking at Italy, where the buyout of a major media conglomerate company called Jetty, which is proving controversial at one of the newspapers it owned. In what way?
The paper we're talking about, Richard, is La Repubblica, which is one of the leading dailies in Italy. Its parent company, Jetty, was recently purchased by Exor, which is the investment arm of the Agnelli family. The Agnellis have multiple business interests, but they're probably best known for founding Fiat Automobiles. Now, with the change of ownership has come a shift in the coverage at La Repubblica.
And what coverage specifically on the coronavirus are we talking about?
So when Exor, the Agnelli's company, took over Jetty, the editor at La Repubblica, Carlo Verdelli, who we recently interviewed, he was replaced. He was fired. And all of a sudden, the paper, along with a new editor, started pushing an editorial line in favor of state aid for Italian car makers, basically arguing that the automobile industry is crucial for Italy to get out of the economic downturn caused by coronavirus. Now, of course, that's very much in the interests of Fiat and therefore the Agnelli family.
La Repubblica is a center-left publication. So how has the takeover and all of this gone down with journalists there?
As you can imagine, not very well. Last month, they went on strike to protest against the firing of Verdelli. And then on Monday, they released a statement saying, "We believe topics linked to the owner's economic interests should be treated with care. We will monitor that the newspaper's independence is preserved." And then just last week, Gerd Lerner, he's a leading columnist at La Repubblica, he resigned, saying that he doesn't recognize the paper anymore. But I think that the broader issue here, Richard, is media diversity in Italy. The bulk of news outlets already lean to the right, and now with the Agnelli's takeover of La Repubblica, the concern is that that imbalance is only going to be exacerbated.
Okay, thanks, Nick. In many countries, it's still far too early to send children back to school. Take Peru. More than 100,000 confirmed cases. Among Latin American countries, only Brazil has more. One area, though, where Peru seems to have fared better than other countries struck by COVID-19 is education. Within 3 weeks of declaring a national lockdown, the Peruvian government commandeered public and private broadcasters, television and radio, to broadcast Aprendo en Casa, or I Learn at Home. 6 hours a day, every weekday. The goal, to make the entirety of both the primary and secondary school curricula available to all students, including the millions who are without television and internet access. The Listening Post's Meenakshi Ravi now on Aprendo en Casa, the TV and radio platform that's schooling Peruvian kids through the lockdown.
February and the beginning of March are important months for us at the Ministry of Education. It's the time when we ensure conditions are optimal for schools in Peru to reopen. This year, the reopening date was set for March 16th.
En el Consejo de Ministros y de manera unánime, un decreto supremo que declara el estado de emergencia nacional.
As it turned out, that was around the same time the coronavirus national emergency was declared.
At that time, I was the presenter on TV Peru's morning news program. Our focus was to communicate the magnitude of the pandemic. Then one day, I got a call from the chairman of the network. He told me schools were being shut, and so the Education Ministry had asked TV Peru to produce a dedicated education from home program, Aprendo en Casa. Then he said, "I'm calling you because you're going to be one of the presenters." Well, since I'm a woman who likes a challenge, I said, "Let's do it."
I can't recall a situation before this in which private and public media have come together for the shared cause of education.
Hola, familias de nuestro querido país.
Most media outlets have a sense of public service. If they don't, then they're making poor use of their broadcasting license.
De la concesión.
These days, school days in Peru are different. From 8:30 a.m. until noon, and then again from 2 p.m. till 6, classes are taught via the state broadcaster, Radio TV Peru. Private media outlets have been brought in on the lockdown learning campaign as well. They air some of the classes on their channels. The coordinated approach has been key to getting the widest reach across the country.
Hola Fabián, ¿cómo estás?
The program Aprendo en Casa, or I Learn at Home, has suddenly become the centerpiece in what is a technology-dependent system of homeschooling the kids.
Utilizamos WhatsApp, utilizamos Inbox, utilizamos Zoom.
My students and I, we use WhatsApp, Inbox, Zoom, email, and of course Aprendo en Casa, which is the basis for everything. Every day I tell my students to watch the daily episode on TV and then to read the material associated with that module. After that, I post assignments on Facebook, as well as on our WhatsApp group. The children can ask me questions via email, or sometimes they'll just call me on WhatsApp or Zoom, and we can drill down into the details.
Y hacer precisiones.
Yo recibo los audios de Aprendo en Casa en el idioma quechua.
I receive audio clips of Aprendo en Casa in Quechua, which is the language we speak here in this area of Peru. I have audio clips sent to me because many of my students can't receive the radio signal in their homes. I get the clips via WhatsApp, I listen to them, and then I share the information with my students over phone calls, text messages, WhatsApp for those who have it, and I also filmed some short videos of lessons for my students.
Para poder enviarles a mis alumnos.
Peru has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. The country's lockdown was swift and strict, but case numbers have soared. Amidst all the bad news, Aprendo en Casa looks like a broadcasting experiment gone right.
Hola, hola, soy Paola Moreno. Bienvenidas y bienvenidos a Aprendo en Casa, una iniciativa del Ministerio de Educación.
Coordinated by the Ministry of Education, the program doesn't aim to replicate the classic school day. That would be impossible. Instead, wider topics and issues are chosen to stimulate discussion, reflection, and to build knowledge in core subjects like language.
Y ahora sí, veremos los videos sobre textos literarios, instructivos y persuasivos.
Mathematics.
Mediante la división podemos saber cuántos grupos se obtienen de una cantidad específica.
And science.
En el programa de hoy aprenderemos que podremos resolver problemas con la ayuda de la ciencia.
Bueno, tenemos algunas ventajas y estamos en un formato televisivo.
We have certain advantages in delivering education through TV. We have a whole team behind us, producers, directors, lighting experts. It's their job to make things appealing, to keep children stimulated through the music, images, and backgrounds.
La música, de las imágenes, de los fondos.
We work very closely with a teaching coach. He instructs me about how to communicate with children.
Escuchen lo que dice mi libro sobre los sentidos. Los animales tienen un sentido del olfato más poderoso que los humanos.
Techniques are crucial, and it helps me to work with the teaching expert.
Watching the TV broadcasts, I'm struck by how dynamic the presenters are.
Estoy muy feliz por este programa. ¿Qué aventuras nos esperan hoy? Yo estoy muy triste porque solo dura 30 minutos y quisiera que durara más. Yo tengo mucho miedo. ¿Podré entender todo lo que hablaremos hoy?
Les presento mi pizarra mágica.
TV has lots of resources and they're making the most of them. A teacher in a classroom does not have such resources. Of course, if I had them, I'd use them gladly.
Pero si yo tuviera todos esos elementos, pues lo haría encantado.
Not all the students are getting the same learning opportunities. The social and economic inequalities in Peru are vast. Nearly 21% of the population lives in poverty, mostly outside the cities, in rural Peru, where internet access is spotty. There are mountainous villages and towns that even radio and terrestrial TV signals cannot reach. And those aren't the only considerations.
Nowadays, there are a lot of discussions about the phenomenon of education poverty. Our task was to provide educational material for Spanish-speaking students, non-Spanish speakers, and students with disabilities. The other issue we had to consider is that we have gaps. Gaps in digital connectivity, gaps in access to resources. This is why we designed Aprendo en Casa across different types of media. Although the internet can probably provide a more complete experience, we wanted to serve the largest number of students and decided we must include television and radio.
The children I teach have nowhere near the same resources that children in cities have. For example, when it rains or there are changes in the weather, the TV, radio, and internet signals, which are already very weak, just stop working altogether. The children send me images of their screens. Miss, this is what's coming up. I can't connect. What do I do? I feel powerless because I don't know what to do. I call them, try to explain the lesson through phone calls or messages, but there's always a void left.
Como que siempre queda un vacío.
As the country looks to ease its lockdown, Peruvians await news of a back-to-school date. Officials are being cautious. It could be June, they say, or September. But even when that day comes, schools are unlikely to return to their pre-pandemic ways. Like the countless numbers of employees around the world who now realize they can work from home, Peruvians now know that they can, to a great extent, learn from home. Aprendo en Casa, aspects of it at least, is probably here to stay.
Sí, mira.
Look, I think that the public and private broadcasters are a powerful resource in an emergency situation like this one. But my personal opinion is that the education in Peru is an embarrassment. Families that don't have the resources for private education or who aren't lucky enough to live in a region with good public education are denied opportunities. The media are great in times of a global pandemic, but they cannot be seen as the solution by our government.
I
think now with Aprendo en Casa, we're at the start of a new process. We have an opportunity to take a fresh look at education. What should children really be learning at school? What about what we teach them through socialization? How much should they be learning from the internet? We have a great chance to create the kind of society we aspire to. But to get there, we need to work from the ground up. And society's foundations are its children.
Y la base de la sociedad son nuestros niños.
And finally, this weekend is Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of the Muslim holy month, Ramadan. It hasn't been easy this year, since Ramadan is normally a time for families to come together and not isolate. And the challenges in Yemen, a country with a humanitarian crisis, are that much greater. The number of coronavirus cases there is mercifully low, for now at least, and Yemenis would like to keep it that way. So a money transfer company there, called Al Aqwa Exchange, came up with a public service announcement, bringing together a group of singers and actors to encourage social distancing. The song is called We Won't Visit You, You Won't Visit Us. It's an attempt to inject a little fun into an Eid celebration that will be far from ideal. We'll see you next time here at The Listening Post.
لا نجيكم لا تجونا يا حبايب اعذرونا مش بخاطرنا فهمونا والسبب فيروس كورونا
في التفاضل لا تدوري والزيارة مش ضروري هتمرضي وتمرضينا في يديش فيروس كورونا والسبب فيروس كورونا هي 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 هي
من عزايم او زياره نمتنع قبل الخساره قبل ما الاعراض تجينا ينتقل فيروس كورونا والسبب فيروس كورونا وانت يا فضولي لا بسرتح وشهرجع مش اشبه ضلولي ولا الوسط بتنباع
اجلس مع عيالك في البيت وخلي قلبك واحكي بكلم جمالك